We are now recording. So I will start by saying good morning, Community College family. It is a pleasure and wonderful to have you on this morning. For those who don't know me, most people know who I am. Good grief. I am Monty Hickman. I'm Director for Enrollment Management for the Community College System. I am also one of the members of the Strategic Enrollment Management Task Force. You see several members of that task force on here also this morning. Those being Casey McAdoo and LaTanya Nixon, are just to name a couple. One thing we wanted to accomplish as a task force is to make sure we inform the colleges of all the resources that are available to help them engage and recruit their students. And so one thing that keeps coming up is colleges are asking for information on customer relation management tools, CRMs as we call them. And so we have several schools who are utilizing several platforms, and so what we wanted to do is bring some of those platforms to you as a system. And so today we have Mr. Artis Kadu, who is the founder and CEO of Element451. And so he has graciously agreed to come and do a presentation for us this morning. What I will ask before I give him the floor, which we're going to do in just a second, is to make sure if you're not presenting currently or asking questions, which I'm sure he's open to you asking questions while you present, but if you're not presenting or asking questions, please put yourself on mute because we're recording and we can hear your background music. So, and we can't hear what you're saying. I've been on calls where we've had people have full-blown conversations while our presentation is going on. So we really don't want to do that to distract from the presentation. So if you would, please mute yourself. If you get a call, if you called in, please put it on, don't put it on hold. Or put it on mute, not hold, because we can hear your elevator music, and that's all just also distracting. So we want to make sure that you all get as much information as uninterrupted a venue as you can. And so with that being said, I am now going to transition to Mr. Kadu.
Thank you, Dr. Hickman. I appreciate the introduction and appreciate putting all this together for us. Hey, everybody. My name is Artis Kadu. I'm the founder and CEO of Element451. I see some familiar faces in here, but some others I don't recognize. So hopefully throughout this whole presentation, we get to make it a little bit more interactive. And one of the things that I wanted to do first, I shared my screen really quickly here just to give everybody. But we wanted to showcase a little bit of Element, and we put together kind of a quick, interactive communication. This would be very similar to how a student can kind of, you're doing marketing to that student would kind of reach out, fill in a quick form, and then kind of get follow-up communications from us. So we wanted to have that available for you. So if you can quickly, take a screenshot or take a picture and fill it that form, that we would really appreciate it. You're going to get a message afterwards with some personalized links as well. And we'll use that information during the presentation as well. All right. So with that being said, I'll leave it in here for just another second or so, and then I'll move on. But Element451, we're a student engagement CRM at the core, and we working with a lot of the institutions in the community, in the system right now. Give me 1 second here. First of all, can everybody see my screen? I just want to make sure, because I've gone in presentations where I've gone on and then, all right. Yes. Excellent. That's great. So I have a whole bunch of my team members here on the call, but today it's going to be myself and Mallory. I can tell you a little bit about myself and also introduce Mallory as well. But I spent a long time in my career on the institution side. I worked both on the recruitment, student engagement, the marketing side of the institutions. That's kind of where I figured out a lot of the gaps that existed around student engagement and better marketing and personalization. I moved on and have formed my own agency, marketing agency, and then that's kind of where I started building a lot of the tools and Element in the form that it is today. So this was, a long time ago. But that's kind of been my passion since the beginning, right? To have better student engagement, better experiences, because more personalized experiences. And Mallory will be co-presenting with me today. I'll be doing a lot of the demo, but I wanted Mallory to come in and give you guys a little bit more of the larger context of why we think something like a tool like Element is super important in not only recruiting and engaging those students, but also, kind of looking at and having everything all tied together, what's happening in the market, and us feeling like we understand where you are, given that we're working with a number of the community systems. So Mallory, she's been an expert on the thought leadership side of the of higher education. She's kind of run 2 decades plus of experience there. She was one of the executive producers of Higher Ed Live in her former life, and that was one of the largest professional development network in higher education, free online professional development. So she knows a lot about the kind of the ecosystem, and then she'll kind of help me present today as well. Very quick company overview, right? So, you're like, well, who are these guys? What do they do? So I wanted to give you a very quick company overview, because that's sometimes gets missed. Well, of course, we'll dive into the product, but we're a local company, local to North Carolina, with headquartered in Raleigh. As a matter of fact, we're maybe a few blocks away from the system office. So that's been really nice. And it's our, it's kind of personal for me to make sure that we work with as many North Carolina institutions as possible, given kind of where we are and given our mission as well. We're about 50 plus employees, and I don't know, that number changes every week, so we might be about 54 this week, but we're growing. We're rapidly growing, and we have folks who are working for Element throughout the country. We have a lot of folks here locally. I actually live just north of Raleigh in Wake Forest. We have about a dozen or so folks who are here local, and then the rest of us are kind of distributed as well. One of the things that's I'm really proud of is sometimes you build tools and technology, but when you don't know what's happening on the other side and who you're building it for, it becomes really difficult. So I'm really proud that we have a lot of higher education expertise on our staff and on our employees. So 300 plus years of higher ed experience. And that's from, the technology side, the marketing side, the recruiting and admission side. So we kind of understand deeply a lot of the problems that are happening, student engagement, and kind of where they are and where they've been for such a long period of time. And the other part is that Element, it's built for higher education by higher ed marketers and experts, right? And that, like I said, that's where the DNA is. That's kind of where it came from. And so far, we're Element is used in about 100 plus institutions throughout the country. All right. Now, like I mentioned, Element it's a comprehensive platform. It targets, higher education, and it really automates and optimizes the marketing, enrollment marketing, the admissions. It's a full CRM platform, and it really helps institutions with anything from their recruiting to enrolling to retaining students. We're helping a lot of those a lot of the North Carolina community college schools achieve the one college model. And this is kind of where, like I said, I want to hand it off to Mallory, where she can give you a little bit more of a better picture of how we're thinking about this, and how Element can fit into some of the strategic enrollment marketing work that you guys are doing, and as part of this workforce, and how core that is to your advancement. So I want to hand it off to Mallory.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Artis. We're still seeing the company overview slide. So yeah, we just want to move to the current student engagement process slide. And so hi, everyone. So as Artis shared, our team has more than 300 years of industry experience. So of course, we're intimately familiar with the challenges of higher education and specifically recruiting at community colleges. You know, we believe that the current process a lot of institutions are using is broken when it comes to engaging students. Element451 was created as a new way to address strategic enrollment management concerns, from recruitment to engagement and communication throughout the modern learner's entire journey. And as Artis mentioned, my career has been spent finding innovative ways to digitally engage with prospective students. That started when I worked on a campus and was looking at social media in its infancy, all the way to spending about a decade at an agency. I've worked with Higher Ed Live, I've worked with Inside Higher Ed, and now in ed tech. So I have seen just time and time again that engagement truly is everything. And the current learner expects us to communicate and relate to them in a highly personalized and relevant way. Yes, of course, part of the work a CRM needs to support is processing applications. But just as importantly for community colleges, it's about the engagement with each individual and making sure that you are landing the right message to the right person at the right time. And if we even take that a step further, it also needs to be in the right medium. So long story short, the old way isn't working anymore. And I think we all agree. And I think you believe this too, because this is clearly articulated in your strategic plan for the system. So at this macro industry level, we all know that the number of high school graduates are declining. This has just been the reality for some time. So just last week, right, I don't know if you saw this article, but Inside Higher Ed reported about enrollment in California community colleges specifically. They reported that it's at its lowest point in 30 years. So since 2019, that system has lost 300,000 students. That's an 18% enrollment decrease. Enrollment is a nationwide challenge for community colleges. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. And so in North Carolina, in your system, despite that small post-COVID rebound, overall enrollment still remains about 9% below pre-COVID levels. So if enrollment numbers are down, what does that do? It puts more pressure to retain the students that we have from one semester to the next. But in a lot of ways, that's a bit of a leaky bucket as well. And that is compounded by the fact that many institutions have decentralized software and organizational structures. So everyone's just doing their own thing from unit to unit. Nothing's connected, nothing's integrated. And we know as strategic enrollment management professionals that there is a huge cost to recruiting. So having a student just walk out the door later is a really big burden on everyone. And it's just simply not sustainable. That is why engaging and making connections with students is really so critical. So here's a little bit of good news. In 2020, and so right in the midst of the pandemic, 97% of first-year students who felt valued, that is, they had a strong connection to their campus, said they intended to return. And that was in the middle of 2020. So this tells us there really is something that we can proactively do to make a student feel valued. And there are many ways that technology can help you to scale those efforts and help small teams best prioritize their time and then give that higher touch to the people and activities that truly need it. So this stat is also from the Chronicle. And, when I look at this stat, I see both a challenge and an opportunity. It highlights, again, that very costly challenge of recruiting and retaining adult learners. But also, there is opportunity here. There are a lot of adult students out there, a huge potential pool. But again, we know that you know this because this aligns with your key strategic plan objectives. I think that the strategic plan was very well articulated. I think you made your goals just crystal clear. So you know what you need to do. You backed it with research. You put the right metrics to measure success, right? You put those metrics in place. And now we would like to help support you in achieving these big goals by putting the right technology in place to underpin all of these objectives and ensure that your time, budget, and effort are just a whole lot more effective. We work with a number of schools in your system already. You can see those logos up on the screen. And like Arta said, we're headquartered in your state. So we get it. We get your specific needs. And I'm, spoiler, going to introduce Devin in just a moment, one of your system leaders, to address how his partnership with Element is making an impact. But before I introduce him, I also just want to note that outside of North Carolina, we do work with a lot of community colleges across the country. So the issues of recruiting and retaining students at public two-year institutions, and we understand that you're serving underserved populations. And so those issues are compounded and even more challenging. And plus, the ramifications of COVID-19 are just still being felt by those students nationwide, from financial distress to mental health, academic engagement, and even the sense of belonging on their campus, right? These are some of the biggest issues that are impacting them and their persistence. All right, but let me bring in Devin now to speak about some of the very specific ways that Element is helping him achieve his goals. Devin is the Executive Director of Marketing and Student Care at Foresight Tech. Devin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mallory. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, I'm so thankful to be here. I'm also really glad. Thank you, North Carolina Community College System, for having something like this. I have found Element to be so powerful and so useful for us here at Foresight Tech, that having this meeting and having this opportunity to introduce it to other colleges, I think is so important, because what we do at the Great 58 is so critical to our economy, to people's lives, to equity, to solving issues of poverty around our state and country. So thank you for having this. Like Mallory said, I serve here at Forsyth Tech Community College. I've been here for about 2.5 years. And one thing that I think is really amazing about our school, and I'm going to brag a little bit, is that we sort of bucked the trend that Mallory was mentioning about the downward enrollment. Actually, this fall, we had the highest curriculum full-time enrollment that we've had in 7 years. So before pandemic levels, we've had the highest that we've had. Last year, we were also on the upward trend. So we're very, very thankful for all of the pieces around our college that have made that dramatic increase possible. But I would be remiss to not mention Element451, because it was so critical and so important in that enrollment increase and in that strategic initiative. A couple of things that Element has changed for our enrollment and with our student engagement is just the way that we communicate with students. So previously, our communication strategy before I arrived and before Element was sort of implemented, it was really just email. And we could maybe see some open rates and things like that, but we didn't really get a lot of information. We didn't have a lot of data. So one of the things that we learned through Element, and we would not have been able to learn this if we didn't have the system, was that we had over 60% more engagement from students using texting. Now we would not have even been able to see those metrics if it were not for the analytics piece that Element451 bakes into the CRM. But we saw that. We saw when we would send emails and texts at the same time, the click-through rate was over 60% higher through text. So that's just an amazing practical way that we've used it. With that, with being engaged, being able to communicate with students one-on-one. So it wasn't just one of these mass text things. It was, if a student was like, oh, I actually have a question about my financial aid, it came to one of our student care representatives. We were able to help them. We were able to guide them through the process, whatever their questions were. So it made communicating and engaging with students incredibly seamless. So we're very, very thankful for that. I think another piece, and one of the reasons that I love Element so much is at my previous institution, I come from the private four-year university world, and I actually implemented a CRM there, Genzabar, and it was an incredibly difficult process. It was very much like you sign the contract and then they're like, okay, wonderful. Here's 40 hours of extra work for you to add on for the next 6 months to implement this system, which I'm sure if you've implemented any software, you've probably experienced some of that. They sell you sort of this pie in the sky thing, and then you realize, oh, I have another full-time job. Element was so easy to work with implementation. They were so helpful. They were there for us. They still are there for us. Whenever we have questions, whenever we have things, whenever we need to think through a solution or an issue, Element has been right there for us to be able to bounce ideas off. I'll give another example, just really quick. Element has helped us solve issues that we didn't even realize that we had. So, for instance, one issue that we had was being able to email both a student email and a personal email. One of our issues was we're trying to connect with students and let them know that they need to enroll for the spring or the next semester. Well, if they're not enrolled, they probably aren't using their student email address. So how could we simultaneously email their personal email and their student school email? Well, there was no way to do that in Element. We brought that to Artist, we talked to the team, and within a couple of weeks, that was built into the system. So we've been able to identify things and say, hey, what if we did this? How can we use it in this way? What if we change this piece? And it's been such a breath of fresh air to work with such an engaging and innovative company that actually we feel like we're being listened to, and then solutions are being created for that. I think another couple of things, and I know I'm talking a lot here. Another couple of things though that we've been able to do. Element is really holistic, so it's not just a texting platform. It's not just a email platform. It makes beautiful emails and it makes communication seamless. But we also create event pages through Element. I've created landing pages through Element that I connect to digital advertising. So for instance, if I have a digital ad that I've targeted people that are interested in emergency medical science, our paramedic program, I can create a page within Element that is specific to paramedics. It's got paramedic pictures, it's got paramedic information, and then they fill out that form. We get that form. It says, John Smith filled out this form about emergency medical science. And then we're able to follow up with that student and know exactly how we need to engage and talk with them. So it's there's a lot of different pieces within Element that I think are incredibly useful. I think another thing that we've been able to do is we've pushed Element not to its limits, but we've pushed the usage of Elements, not just for students. We actually use Element to engage with our legislative officials. We use Element to engage with our alumni. We've started to build our alumni database through Element. We've also been able to communicate with our board of trustees. So really, if there's any communication that we have that we want to look good, have an RSVP link, have anything like where we have a texting function, we do it all through Element. It's made it very, very simple, very, very easy. As Forsyth Tech has transitioned into a one college model where we don't separate our continuing education partners from our curriculum partners, but rather integrated that. Element has been so beneficial in being able to connect and communicate and engage with students, no matter the program that they're looking for. So I know that I just gave you a mouthful. It was kind of like a fire hydrant. But I can't say enough. I'm actually, you all, I'm on vacation. I'm flying back from Mexico. So Element is so near and dear to me that I just could not lose the opportunity to talk about it, because it's really, really a fantastic tool.
Devin,
Thank you,
thank you
Mallory.
so much. I
Yeah.
mean, literally dialing in from the airport. So we can't appreciate that enough. And I'm sure it was really helpful. Some of these very tangible examples that you just shared as use cases and ways that the product has helped you change your processes for the better and your ways of engaging. So, Devin, we will let you go since I think you've got a flight to catch, but thank you for your time. We so appreciate it. I'm sure we will all see you soon in a variety of ways, but thanks again, Devin.
Absolutely. And if anyone with any college here that's represented today has any further questions about Element or wants to talk with me, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk anytime about it. So thank you.
So kind.
Bye, y'all.
All right. Thanks. Bye, Devin.
See ya.
All right. So bringing it back, the goals outlined in that strategic plan just made it clear that, like what Devin was saying, right? You're not just concerned about increasing access and enrollment within the system, but you're equally focused on helping those learners persist and complete their education. And I love that Devin was able to even allude to how, from the alumni side, they're starting to build their database right within the system as well. So therefore, you need that right marketing engagement tool to help you accomplish all of those goals and support and engage individuals throughout the entire student life cycle. This is what has helped Devin achieve that one college model and manages communications at scale. So how is the one college model achieved? We understand that the goal for the one college model is to eliminate the complexities that are happening behind the scenes and to give learners the ability and ease to achieve their dreams, and then to give staff the right tools to guide them. A learner should be able to come in one door, get exactly what they need, and then keep going without having to understand all of those complexities that we just know exist within higher ed. So how can technology help achieve the one college model? And the answer is through personalized student-centered journeys from admissions all the way to graduation and beyond. I'm sure any Spotify users here excitedly got their Spotify Wrapped last week. I know I really look forward to that every year. And much like that Spotify experience or Netflix, right? It's all about personalization. Personalized journeys for the target audience and an experience that is based on behaviors and actions. It's not the transactional application-based communication approach that we have already established is broken. So you need to communicate based on where a student is, what they're doing, and the actions that they are taking, not just moving them through the process, but also lessening the friction points that exist. And students, we can recognize, right, that in this day, they can go to school wherever they like, in the country, online, really the world. So in order to win, we need to give them the experience that they're looking for to create preference so that they select your institution over others. But it is really hard, if not impossible, to create such a seamless experience for students when all of those realities of higher ed bureaucracy exist. And what that often means is dealing with a completely fragmented technological footprint. And this is exactly what the one college model is looking to overcome, right? But you can't create that journey if you need to use 15 completely different solutions to nurture the student. And there are just naturally going to be seams and friction points within each single interaction, let alone getting from start to finish, which is compounded when you're using a number of different tools. This is where Element comes in and shines. You need the personalized student-centric journey at every step of the way. You need to create that full learner lifecycle loop that's going to encompass search all the way to retention. And your students need, dare I say, your students expect to be communicated with in the ways that they're just used to because it's 2022. The educational journey is never going to end, and you know, your engagement with your students at all points in that journey is just paramount to success. So we've built the technology, right? The powerful communication and engagement tools that can help you facilitate that full learner life cycle loop in a single solution to ensure that you as an institution and them as a student succeed. Artis is about to walk you through this. Things like personalized communications with dynamic content and real-time chat, surveys, automation, data integrations, et cetera. The key is that it's all going to be within the single solution. And so you can ensure that you're engaging these students at each stage, but even more so reaching them at each individual points within the stages. And we do this within Element in an intelligent way. The solution is working for you to lessen the manual effort that's needed to achieve all of these goals. That's through artificial intelligence and business intelligence. So your teams can focus on having the meaningful interactions with students, not just worrying about, you know, which email students are getting when, or trying to guess at like why or where they might have stopped or slipped through that leaky bucket. There are no more leaks in the bucket with Element. So we would like to make your team of 3 feel like a team of 10. And with that, I am going to hand things back over to Artis, and he will walk us through the platform.
All right, let me unmute this. Thanks, Mallory. Very quick. I know that we need to get into the product and showcase some of the products. So very aware of that we're 30 minutes in and we've just been talking, but we feel like setting some of the context is really important. And one of the things that we want to mention is, of course, Element has a lot of tools in there and a lot of capabilities, and different schools are using it a little bit differently to kind of match their needs. But when you think about CRM, and especially an engagement CRM, this is not the traditional, hey, give me a database, so I'm going to store my names in there and I'm going to do some communication, right? It's a lot more than that. So when we think about an all-in-one platform, at the top level, like we think about marketing. So those are there's 4 different areas that we're going to go over today. One of them is going to be around marketing. How do we make personalized marketing campaigns, how to make them relevant, automated, and personalized, right? Those 3 things. And what Devin talked about was landing pages, email communications, SMS communications, events. Like those are the marketing components. We're talking about engagement. How do we, once we market to that student, once we have their name in our database, how do we actually reach out to them, and how do we personalize that communication one-on-one? How do we engage them not just with email, but then how do we engage them as we see what they're doing and what they need throughout the journey after they become a student, after they register for classes, or even after that at all. And then the third part about all CRMs, when we talk about them, of course you can do communications, but there's this huge component which is the application that falls into that. And you have a lot of different student types. You have students that are coming from CFNC. You have students that are coming from the CCP programs and a few other ones, and all those populations need to kind of live in the same place, and the application, checklisting, all of those things. So applying becomes a huge component of a higher ed specific CRM. So that's another big component of Element. And then the last but not least, we're going to talk about a little bit more about the data and intelligence, right? So how do we connect all of it so we can see what students are doing, what engagements are happening, and communications throughout it. So in terms of the marketing, and I'll just dive into the components, we mostly focus on, or when you think about marketing, you focus on email, SMS campaigns. How do we do that? How do we automate them? But then there's a lot more than that, right? There's things like, how do we track those students on your website visits? How do we make these campaign managements and landing pages without coding, so you don't need a marketing person to kind of build these things? And then how do you personalize those communications as well, so you can feel more personal, while at the same time making sure that you're not spending all of your time in building kind of these campaigns. live capturing their information through your website, through forms, or through live chat, tracking that ability, and then having microsites, personalized microsites. So I'm going to I don't know if everybody was able to. I'm going to go back to this slide really quickly and see if you joined the meeting a few minutes late, or if you didn't get a chance. I wanted for you to take a look and see if you can kind of submit your information and fill out this form, because it gives you an insight on how the student is going to do it on their side. So how they're going to kind of engage with you and get that information, and also what they're expecting on the other side. So you can get a quick preview of that. Now, during the presentation, I'll be happy to kind of stop and give a few answer questions. So I think we can post a lot of those questions in chat. Brendan and kind of, the team here that's on the Element side can kind of post those, or even call them out as part of the presentation itself. So hopefully that can be something that we can do. All right. So with that said, I'm going to kind of go through this really quickly. So given that we had the context of Foresight Tech, in mind, one of the things that they do on their communications, on their marketing side, is the ability to kind of collect students' information and request, their request information. So under their request information, they have an embedded Element form. This is an Element form that's embedded right within their website in order to collect that student's term and interest and program of interest. And what this happens is very similar to the form that you just submitted and you just filled in for our, let's go to this one really quick. So you can take a look at it. So it's the same kind of form that you filled in here, but now it's actually within the institution's website. So Element is able to capture that and be integrated directly within the institution's website. Now, another one that Devin was talking a little bit more about was, hey, how do we build more of these landing pages or these forms that are going to help us with different populations? And here's another one that they have built, and this is specifically built in Element, and I'll show you a few more as we go, and I'm hoping that he won't mind me just sharing the great work that he's doing on the landing pages on the team specifically, but I'm going to show it here so you can see that they have built a lot of different landing pages for different populations and different kind of use cases, so students can kind of capture that information from them in all those different places. So these are landing pages that are built with Element, and they are very easily created, where you can kind of come in and you can very easily kind of have a WYSIWYG editor, and you can see those forms that are available in here that are capturing that student information. So now, where does all this information go, right? Like that's one of the big things about any CRM. Once you capture it, or once you build those forms, once you capture that student's information, it actually goes into Element itself. So what you're seeing here is it's kind of the back end or the dashboard of where all that student information is. So we captured a whole bunch of your information in here in real time as you've been kind of filling in those forms. And what you're seeing here is, I can kind of come in and take a look at that particular, your particular data that you have. You have very little data right now, but you are, essentially in Element. And one of the things that we can do is we can start communicating directly with you, as if you're direct, if I open this in your profile, we can start a conversation directly with you, either through SMS or through text, or through a phone call itself. So we can also have phone calls in Element. So I'm going to do that really quick in here. Let's see if I'm going to just see if I can send an SMS message. hopefully that will work, and then we can kind of go back and forth through that conversation here. So Arcel, if you're getting an SMS and you're like, well, who the hell is this person? Then of course it's us here from the Element side. Okay, so going back, one of the things that you're probably got back was a link to the microsite. But before we go there, I wanted to explore, we don't have a lot of information on Arcel because we just collected a few pieces of information. But as we take a look at somebody who is in Element and we have a lot more information about them, we can see in here that not only do we have things like where their intended campus is, or where they are in terms of the program of interest, or some of the demographic locations, so on and so forth, but we're also able to get insights on their engagement and kind of some of the marketing and the marketing that we've been doing, interactions from their side. So as you kind of see here, their Element kind of builds automatically these engagement scores. We have kind of what their last touch points were. You can see all of their activity as we go along. We see their activity, so the things that they have done, right? And of course, we can take a look and everything at the day level. So it becomes very, very clear what kind of course, there's a lot of data in here for this particular student. But in your case, you'll have more consolidated data. And of course, the communications that we've done from our side, right? How many touch points are we sending out? What kind of touch points are those? So on and so forth. So this is a student profile that's, a little bit more fuller than the one before. Now, before I go into too deep into some of the engagement components, and I showed you that conversation very quickly, one of the things that we talked about is communications, right? So as these folks came in, as you guys came in here, what we did is that we have a automation workflow that is going in and adding labels and sending you that message. And the way that's done is through our kind of workflows, and very, very easily we can take a look in here and we can see how that's done. So we have this interactive demo. As soon as you filled in that form, we kind of added a label to you, and then we're sending you that communication that we build very easily in here. And of course, what I did in here, I also set up a demo follow-up task for me, so I can follow up with you afterwards, right? So I can follow up a day later with you. So when we look at that, when we look and go back to one of those folks that we have in here, one of the things that you're going to notice is that there is a task that was literally just assigned to me in order for me to follow up with you tomorrow around this demo. So this is something that's super interesting, because we not only can see this very simple communication flow in here, but I have a flow that's a little bit more advanced, and I'm going to hopefully, this is again from one of the other institutions in the system. This is Mayland, and what they have is a more fleshed out kind of communication flow with touch points throughout. So as that student comes in, they're doing the same thing. They're labeling that student, they're sending communications, and then they're following through with communications around different topics, days after. So they're kind of sequencing that through. So when somebody comes in, they're kind of labeling them, they're saying the welcome, and then 2 days later, they're sending the program specific information that they requested for that student, and they're following again financial aid information, encouragement. You can see that's an SMS message. So we're mixing those things. And what they're doing in here is they're having a phone call follow-up. Maybe this is a couple of weeks after, if they haven't applied or if they haven't kind of followed their next step in their process. So this is just another example of how automation and kind of in the marketing sense works, right? Once you market to that student, you kind of get them into the database, you can now start building these communications. Now, rather than me showing you, so I show you the workflows, let's take a look at the communications themselves, right? So what you received before, this is what happens when you have so many tabs open. What you received before, you received a communication. And the way that we're able to build those communications is through kind of a WYSIWYG. But in this case, you received a SMS message. And what we're looking at here, it's a very simple SMS message. Obviously, you have received an attachment, a picture with that as well. And each one of you received a automatic login to your personalized microsite. So when you look at that, you're going to see the communication, and Element is generating those on the fly, right? So it's trying to automate a lot of that process, so you don't have to, do personalization at scale for hundreds of students or even thousands of students as they come in. So we have the ability to kind of generate these magic links or tokens so they can log into the different places and making it frictionless without them needing an account. Or in your case, you didn't need an account in here. But of course, I can add an email component to this, and we can do that communication as well. Now, I'm going to exit out of this and show you one that's a little bit more of a more interesting use case in here. Let me go back to our campaigns and our ongoing communications, and I'm going to open up a use case that it's pretty, pretty easy to see yourself doing. As that student comes in, one of the things that you're going to be able to do is send them, let's say, a message around a particular, their counselor. Hey, meet your counselor. Here's the program director or the program person who's handling this this application or is handling your case. In here, what you're seeing is a pretty generic email, right? But what you're noticing in here is that this is being personalized for each individual counselor that's sending this out. So it's being personalized when it gets sent out. And of course, you can have an email and an SMS as well on the same communication. So these are mass email, mass communications, but personalized at that student. And it becomes really, really easy to do these in Element, where you can come in and you can actually, let me show you really quickly, where you can come in and you can see that you can personalize and you can create different versions for different folks in here. So based on our segmentation or based on our labeling and however else we want to do it. But as we come into the email, it's pretty easy to build these emails, right? It's just WYSIWYG, it's just drag and drop. You get a text very similar to how you work in Word. And this message is, you just have your images that you upload in here and you kind of go through it. Where this becomes really interesting is in this kind of meet your team. So when we built those personalization areas, then we said, oh, okay, now I can change the content. If the person's counselor is Emily, for example, it's going to tell a little bit about Emily. And also in the kind of signature area, if let's go back to Emily in here, it's going to showcase her signature. So when this message goes out, I can quickly preview this in here, and I can see, of course, let's take a look and see, like, hey, well, what is it going to look like for for Jamie? So if I pick someone for Jamie, and I pick just Emily over here, this is what's going to go out for Jamie, right? And of course, all of our messages are mobile and responsive, so they're very mobile friendly. We know that almost everybody now is kind of checking most of their emails from their phones first, and then if they have to do some work, they're going to their computers. But open rates on mobile devices are really, really high. So I wanted to show you this because this is how you can make one email introduction for all of your programs or all your counselors. And this is a very good use case of marketing in Element and how we can personalize it at that level. All right, so I'm going to take a step back and, show you a couple other things around, we talked about marketing, but I'm going to show you very quickly, going to jump into that microsite, because that's another area where we think about, actually, let's kind of go back and take a look around engagement, because I feel like we have a little bit more time, but let's take a look at the engagement components of Element, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into those components as well, and kind of give you a little bit of a better understanding. So when we talk about engagement, you saw how we did the chat component, but there's a lot more than that, right? There's a lot more to chat than just having somebody on the other side. Element has a multi-channel conversations approach, where it doesn't matter if you're on the website, you're doing it via live chat. You can take that conversation over SMS, or you can take it over email, or even a phone call. So we can do that as well. So when we talk about engagement, we talk about live chat, email. We talk about these personalized tours, virtual tours. We talk about surveys, two-way mass texting. Of course, we have the ability to have a unified inbox. So, rather than students sending messages to a particular inbox, they can send them to Element, and then you can work all from the same place, rather than you having to have emails in your inbox and having to transfer them or forward them over. And of course, you have a lot of automation in there as well. So rather than me showing, kind of talking about it, I wanted to show you one of our partners that is using our conversations module quite a bit, is our friends at Durham Tech, and they have it embedded right within the website here. So as you click on chat, this is an Element451 chat and conversation messenger, and you can see previous conversations, and you can embed this in everywhere, right? You can embed it in your internal portals, you can embed it, and we're going to see that as well. But I can start a conversation in here.
Hey, artist, the screen went green. The screen sharing is just showing green right now.
Oh, okay. So let me see if I can stop it. And
it's very relevant for the holidays.
I saw Durham Tech. I didn't see green. I saw Durham Tech.
Oh,
yes, I saw Durham Tech as well.
Oh, our team was seeing green across the board.
Yeah, I saw Durham Tech as well.
Oh,
there you go.
Only
Thank you, everyone.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
All right. So I'm glad it was just our internal team that was seeing green. Dr. Hickman, what did you do? So
now we have green. Oh, it's back.
I was going to say, now we have green too.
I see Durham Tech still.
Should I wait for another minute and reshare again, or have you guys been able to follow up with my voice and the examples that I'm showing, or is there a delay in the system?
No, we hear everything perfectly.
Yeah,
Excellent.
No delays, and it looks like we're back on the Durham slide or screen.
Excellent. All right. So this is being recorded as well, and I'm hoping that again, we can share the recording. But on top of that, our team and myself, we would be happy and would love to give you a tour with any of the questions that you might have separately and individually, and schedule those. So we're hoping that this meeting can give you kind of this high-level overview with some of the details around seeing the capabilities of the platform, and then going into more details on what specifically we have and how that works. So don't worry, we're here. We can spend as much time as we need with you, but we just want to give you examples of how some of the other schools are using Element and kind of what the capabilities are, so you have it in the back of your head. All right, so in Durham Tech, if I start a conversation in here very quickly, and I hope that they So one of the things that Element does is when it doesn't recognize who I am, it tells me, hey, can you give me your email address so I can figure out who you are, and then I can follow up later. So this is another way that you can kind of capture somebody's information, and in the background, Element is tying that back. If it finds that person in the database, it ties that conversation back with that person. So I'm going to actually do that, and it's asking me for my first name and last name, of course, because it wants to personalize communications with me as well. There we go. So thank you. We'll be in touch as soon as we can, and this was a conversation from them. So now I can exit and I can come back in here and I can resume my last conversation, or I can now see past conversations that I've had with a team in here, so on and so forth. So it will kind of tie those conversations back. But in order for me to show you that, I wanted to kind of jump into Element, and of course, the same chat is also on that landing page that you saw before. So I can go to that landing page, but even further, rather than you filling in the information, the email and phone number in there, I wanted to go directly into that page and take a look at the website that I sent you to. So let me do that really quick. Here we go. So here we go. So when you logged in to that, when you clicked on that email link, you were directed into this website specifically. And as part of this, you're probably, you have the chat bubble in here as well. And if I open that, one of the things that I'm going to notice is I can resume my last conversations, or I can see past conversations or start a new conversation. So let me kind of send that over. Okay, so as I do this, here we go. So as I do this, I can go back to Element, and I can go under my conversations, and you can kind of see all of those conversations happening here here in Element. If it just takes me a second, I'm hoping my internet is not kind of fading out. Because everything is becoming a little bit slower on my side. Anyone else on my? Yep.
We see conversations and something's loading, it looks like.
Got it. Okay. Let me refresh this really quick. There we go. All right, so here we go. So we saw that conversation that came in before ourselves. There we go. There was my conversation. Here is the one that I just started, and it's going to tell you exactly where the conversation came from. As a counselor, I can join that conversation in, and I can start communicating with that student specifically in here. And as I go back and forth, you're going to see now the conversation back and forth with that student because they're in one of those chats. Now, of course, we can do a lot more things in here. We can send them kind of messages, emojis, and you can kind of upload files for them. We can kind of upload images that we've had here before. But the thing that I wanted to do is, we can record a quick little video as well, right? And I can actually come in here and I can start recording a quick, actually, I'm gonna just record my, yeah, I can do both of those. So I can do a quick screen recording in here. I'm hoping that this would work live. Hey, everybody. This is hello from one of our demos. Okay. So as I complete this, I can actually insert that recording as part of our message in here and send that as well. So very, very useful for you to communicate with that student, not just by text, by email, but also you can send them, video recordings as well if you're trying to show them something, or if there is a more personal touch to that as well. So there we go. That student got it on their side as well. And of course, if that student wasn't online, they would get an email with that video, and they would get an SMS with that video as well. So lots of stuff in here. Of course, you can kind of manage that person. We can go back to their profile, and we can see I can associate it with an already existing account that I had in the system, and I can go back and I can see my profile here. I can go back to that profile that I just had, and of course we can see all of the activities that have happened in just the last few minutes here that we've been talking about. So hopefully this gives you an idea on how you can keep all of those communications and all those engagement in check into one place. Now, the other part that's really cool on this microsite is, of course, the ability to embed videos, and the ability to kind of have surveys and kind of checklists and so on and so forth. But then also something really cool is, we have, you can personalize this for everybody, right? So you can personalize it for each student, and you can kind of link out to different places as well. In this case, we're just linking out to our event portal, and this is another way that Element can help you out, right? Event management and managing events for different types of events on campus, or even virtual events, virtual appointments with your advisors, and so on and so forth. All right, I'm going to take a quick short break and see if there's any questions so far around the product. I want to make sure that I'm covering enough of it, but I'm not, overwhelming everybody, so to speak.
There's nothing in the chat so far, but everyone feel free to put any questions you have in the chat, and I will read them aloud and we can get them in, or just unmute and ask them yourself. That's fine too.
Mm-hmm. All right. So
people are shy. A lot of people are really shy sometimes.
You have one, Artist. How does Element and Colleague work together? I think we're
actually going to address that. Yeah, we're going to address that in just a little bit. So rather than me kind of diving into more of these, I wanted to, so kind of continuing on our interactive demo, the last thing that I'm going to do here is go back to that workflow. And, of course, you can build a lot of those communications and send them out yourself, but Element gives you, we have a bunch of those pre-built communications as well. And one of them is the ability for, we have a FAFSA campaign that we usually, we put together all the content for it. And we can, you can install it for yourself. And PAX is a very powerful system that's only in Element, where it's pre-delivered content or templates for email, SMS messages, kind of full campaigns put together that you can customize for yourself. But in this case, there's a FAFSA reminder email, and I can install it in here, and it'll just ask me a couple of things in here around, like, okay, who do you want to send it to, and then how do we know that that person has completed it? I already have installed this, but I wanted to kind of enroll all of you who have been added to, who have kind of submitted that form, so you can see some of the communications that this FAFSA is going to receive, you're going to receive. And I'm going to go to my workflow so you can take another look of what you're going to receive as part of that communication plan for FAFSA, right? So you're going to see that you're going to get an intro, you're going to get another email, you're going to get an SMS message, you're going to get a third email. Now, all of these touch points are built around the idea of that student filling in that FAFSA if they haven't done. And of course, they get reminders throughout as well. Now, what I've done here is I've actually accelerated this to be about 1 minute or 5 minutes. So I'm going to actually extend my prior workflow, and I'm going to show you how easy that is. So rather than me enrolling you automatically or manually in here, I'm going to go to the workflow that I set up before, this interactive demo, and I'm going to add another step in here. And one of the things is going to be enroll to workflow. So I'm going to FAFSA reminder campaign. I'm going to add that. Let's see if that worked for me here. Enroll to workflow. There we go. Okay, so now all of you are going to be enrolled in that other workflow. It will just give the system a few minutes, and then you're going to start receiving those messages. I apologize if you entered your email and your SMS, but you're going to be receiving them over the next hour or so as they're spaced out every 5 minutes, so you can kind of see the campaigns in there. Now, that's all included in Element, right? All right, so with that being said, I'm going to kind of go back to my kind of guide here. And the last thing that I want to show, well, the last two things is kind of applications. And one of the things that we're going to touch about on applications is, kind of a customized student portal, kind of automatic decisioning around applications, the ability for us to migrate things like the CCP applications or anything that you have that's being managed outside of Colleague or it's being managed outside of CFNC. We've been able to, work with CFNC to integrate some of that data, having the ability to kind of, have kind of this task management and case management as part of it as well. It's all in documents, all of an Element specifically. So let's kind of step back out of that and let me open up I'm going to actually showcase very quickly. I'm going to showcase Wake is using the application for a few of the other populations, so like CCP or continuing student form or even an international application here as well. So coming in, you have the ability to kind of fill this very, very quickly and then see how kind of go through that process. But rather than me creating an account and going through this process in here, I'm going to go back to, I'm going to go back to one of my other users. And in this case, I'm going to go back to Jamie. And as I go through their profile, one of the things you're going to notice is that there's a lot more data in here that a particular application, but you're going to see that there's an application section in here, and students in Element can, or users in Element can have multiple applications. So applications are separated from their profile, and they can start an application for multiple kind of populate as they're become a different types of student. They can start different applications. Or if they drop out and they come back in, they can start another one for a different program. So in this case, you can see that this person has a whole bunch of applications in here, but I'm going to actually log in as that student so you can see very quickly what that looks like. So if I log in as that student, in this case, this person has been admitted, but I'm actually going to go to the main portal. So what you saw before was Wake. I wasn't logged in. It asked me to start an application. I'm actually logged in now, and then I can see all of the applications that I have submitted. And on top of that, it's also showing me my conversations in here. That you can embed that, and you can see the latest video that I see, that I got. So what you're seeing everywhere in Element is the ability for you to carry that conversation and that engagement from one place to another, from marketing side all the way down. And of course, these applications, like I said, we can kind of take a look at them individually. Let's see. You can see what's missing. You can have any type of question that you want, anything from addresses to kind of enrollment plans to family information, even additional documents that they might need as well. Okay. That's on the application. Of course, one of the nice things about this is that all of the documents for these applications kind of are in the same place, and you can review them in the same place, right? So you can review their any documents that are coming in, like their transcript or any other components that are coming in. You can review them here directly in Element. Of course, this is a student that has testing information in here as well, but you can take a look at it separately and even make notes on them depending on what type of app it is. Okay. Any questions on the apps? I think we can go more into detail in here later on. The last part I wanted to show you was on data and analytics, and of course, Element collects a lot of that data. You can see information around engagement, and you can see information around different. Let me see if I open up the right one in here. So you can see data on kind of tasks. You can see data on the funnel. You're able to see data on kind of location, geographically based data. You're able to see kind of email performance and see what's working and what's not working. You're able to see kind of event signups and what kind of events your students are attending, even things like where they're going on your website and kind of what they're doing in there. And of course, you're looking at some of on the marketing side. You can look at sources on where your students are coming from, but you can also take a look at if you're assigning tasks to your different counselors, you can see how they're performing, right? How many tasks are getting completed, who's completing most tasks, how many of them are due, so you can evaluate how your staff and your team is doing. All right, I think I'm running a little bit long, so I'm going to kind of step back out of this, and I'm going to go back to really quickly and answer some of those questions that came up, and one of them was the banner and colleague, the colleague integration. So what we've done and we're able to do is Element can kind of become the place where you're storing all of your students and where all the students can come in, and you can manage all those communications. And we're able to bring data in from colleague and push data to colleague in two different bidirectionally. And then we're able to bring in documents from external systems, or even kind of the documents and even application data from CFNC directly into Element. And we're able to push those documents then through SFTP into OnBase or any other document system that you're using. So that's, wanted to kind of give you this example in here, and that's kind of what we're doing with Wake Tech right now. And we're also working with a few others, schools, to kind of work through that process as well, the API and giving those connections directly into Element. Now, I do want to, I know everybody's kind of familiar with Casey, as she's one of the members of this this workforce, but I was hoping that Casey can kind of give a little bit of a I don't know, some color to, of course, I breezed through the integration part, but there's certainly challenges and kind of, best practices from her side on how this can be accomplished.
Thanks, Artist. We'll let you catch your breath for a second. I know that's a lot to cover. I want to just give a little bit of context. I, again, am Casey McAdoo at Wake Tech. I've been with Wake Tech for 2 years as of last week, I believe, and have about 20 years in higher education prior to that with 4-year institutions. This is my 4th CRM, 3rd in which I've had some major role in the implementation. So I kind of consider myself a critic of CRMs, to be 100% honest with you. I'm very particular about what they do for us and for our students. And so as Artist mentioned, we are under the one college model. So when we went to implementation, it was for curriculum and for workforce continuing education. This is Wake Tech's very first CRM. I have called our team the human CRM, but now we have the tools. And really, like most of you, we had a bunch of disparate tools that were doing the work, but we couldn't connect the dots. So it was confusing for students, inefficient for staff, and making it really impossible to track data effectively. And we really wanted to go the full spectrum. So we wanted from suspect, prospect stage, all the way through the full enrollment cycle and perhaps beyond down the road. But so we needed something that was going to meet those needs. While I'll talk a little bit more in depth about where we are with like applications and integration, I just want to tell you we're really happy with where we are with the prospect forms, communications, our team. We have RFI forms out there. We have customized forms for our outreach team in the high schools, and we're able to track all of that as well as all of our campus events and manage of our tours, which we have tours on 4 campuses right now. This fall, we launched our custom applications, and these are applications that begin in Element, and that's for our international students. And to date, we've had about just under 400 applications. For Career and College Promise, we're doing both new and continuing students, and we're about 3,500 or so for spring 2023 between those 2 populations of new and continuing. What I love about the CCP application and the international student application is I think it took our team hours to build those, not days. So it was really user friendly, and our team could take what we were using before and translate it into Element really quickly after we were trained to do so. We're also capturing, I know for many of you all, the signature piece is a real hang up for the CCP application. So we're able to get all of the signatures we need and have a workflow with that between the schools, parents, etc. And we're also, they're uploading documents into it, and we've been very, very happy with it. We're actually, this week is our audit period for CCP, and we've, so we'll, know more at the end of this week, but so far we're finding that it has been much more effective and efficient, and the feedback from our high school partners has been tremendous. So that really, to me, tells me we're on the right track with those. We're also using it for custom applications for cooperative and innovative high schools. So we have 4 of those. And so those are custom applications. You don't see them online because they're private links. And so those are our early colleges, and they're using it as well. We have custom communication built in there. We are migrating documents between Element and OnBase twice daily, and have been really happy with how that is going. Using all of these tools, we've been able to reduce what we're putting in OnBase, keeping Element as a source of truth for things that don't need to go beyond the admissions process, but those things like transcripts that are going to be needed by other offices can go on into OnBase and be available for our campus community. So with our custom applications, all of that data is moving into Element with one exception, and that is the custom screens right now, what I call the X screens with Colleague. And we, Artists, I think it's fair to say, I think we have a plan in place, and we will have those done
yes, exactly.
shortly. And that's just because it took a little bit more to get access to those screens, since those are system-wide screens, and they did not have endpoints for us to be able to post data to them. So we are working through that, and hopefully what we do will benefit all the other schools once we get that migrated. We've also been working with the system office to get the CFNC application ID added, which will help a lot as we start to move to the CFNC implementation. So we are, I think, at the kind of what I would call about 80% done with the CFNC integration, and having a unique identifier like the CFNC application ID will be helpful to all of us in that process, because it is the only unique identifier. We originally had planned to bring the data in through Colleague, from CFNC to Colleague into Element. There is some discussion around whether or not that's going to be the continued process. So we've delayed it just a little bit while we finalize the X screens and make that decision. My recommendation from previous institutions is that you go the other direction, bring data directly into Element, and then clean the data up and move it into Colleague. I kind of consider that best practices, but there are different reasons why schools will choose different routes, and I think they can accommodate both. And that's probably
Casey,
the
do
most
me a
important.
favor.
Yeah.
Send me an email on that if you don't mind, because I know we're working on all that stuff now with
Yeah.
Sonia and CFNC, and that's kind of new to me. So I want to be on top of that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. And again, this is just kind of a business best practice versus what may work best for the community college system. And
Right.
so,
That makes sense.
yeah. So my whole goal is that your student information system, our colleague system, is got the cleanest, best, most relevant data in it, and giving you a chance to do that work first in Element, and then to have push over what's accurate is just a great kind of best practice. But again, every school is going to choose differently on that. We knew because of the timing of our implementation, we needed to go ahead and get spring for our CFNC spring apps taken care of, and then we will be migrating summer and fall into Element. So really happy with where we are. I think the thing that I will tell you is integration is hard no matter what CRM you choose. It's just a hard thing for data to talk back and forth. I think that's probably something we all know, but Element has made it very easy for us. They gave us a spreadsheet. We worked with our data team, we filled it out. And from there, we just started plugging away at making sure data was moving and testing it. And they have been highly responsive to us along the way. I think they're really your partners, and I can't tell you how responsive. I mean, the week of Thanksgiving, we're sending them, things to test and things to check, and they're working just as hard as on their end. And I don't always find that to be the case with vendors, that you get that level of support this deep into the project. And they're very consultative, and I think that that's what you want at this, as we're all of us rethinking our processes, so that you're not just recreating the wheel, but you're doing it in a way that makes sense for your students. And so that has been really powerful for us. But they've done I have to give them credit. They've done the heavy lifting on the implementation. That stuff is not on the integration, that stuff is not easy. And they've given us the tools and resources to be successful, and crossing fingers. I think end of 2022, beginning of 2023 is going to be a new day for us in terms of how we're moving data back and forth and how we're communicating. Again, we're great on our custom applications with the exception of those screens, but we're looking forward to going live with our CFNC. We've tested a lot, and I feel like we're really close. And so I'm very hopeful that we're going to have that done. And again, hopefully some of this heavy lifting will benefit everyone else in the system, because we've kind of navigated some of the challenges that you might have had. And with the help of the Element451 team, I think we've come up with really good solutions that'll just streamline the process for our students. So,
thanks, Casey. I really appreciate that. And we didn't pay Casey to say that, by the way. So this is so. One of the things that it's been really important for us is that we are kind of local here, and I've made sure that the team has it pays extra attention to to the North Carolina schools, especially community colleges, given that this is something that's dear to us and that's very, very important to us. So I'm going to just very quickly share my screen one more time. And very quickly kind of talk about when we mentioned about that, Casey mentioned that implementation component, but it's really in lockstep, right? So we can get up and running pretty quickly in a lot of the different components, but it's all included as part of the cost of Element. So there's no additional fees for the implementation process, and we're pretty consultative around that. It's you get assigned dedicated team during that process, anywhere between 10 to 12 weeks for some of the smaller schools that we're working with, but it can take a little bit longer for some of the larger ones like Wake Tech, for example, with many more complex workflows. Bringing in all your data, we giving you an LMS to work with. So all of that stuff is all it's all part of that implementation. And of course, this gives you a little bit of a different view on it, where you can start using the product as soon as week 1 to send communications and email and SMS messages. But then as you start building applications and start building integrations, they can take a little bit longer to kind of onboard. But we are doing all the heavy lifting. We're doing most of the heavy lifting in here and working with you throughout that process. And of course, this is all part of, and it's included as part of that. And like I said, the onboarding resources, you have a full learning management system that we give access to you for things like videos and guided training for every one of the components in the product as well. And a couple of things I want to mention is in terms of the response time, you have a live support even after implementation. Everyone who has access to Element dashboard has access to our live support, and we usually respond in 2 to 3 minutes, around 3 minutes response time. And we close our tickets or our issues within 2 hours. Granted, if it's not a system, if it's not a new thing or something that we're working in integrations and stuff like that. So that's pretty fast. And the last thing, given that Brittany is, she's going through the process of implementing right now, and perhaps you're going to say, well, maybe Wake Tech is one of the larger schools. What does it look like for someone like a COA, for example? We have Brittany is on one of our captains as well, and hoping that we can get her to give her kind of view a little bit as well.
Yes, so we actually just finished like all of our training and that 10 to 12 week kind of thing, but we're still implementing because we do have a little bit smaller of a team. But just to kind of go back on, everything that's been said before me, we're doing some of the same stuff of, getting the specific applications for international students, for CCP, for our continuing education. We're using the automation for the texting, for the emails, all the marketing, whether it's alumni, or prospects or even current students. One thing that we're really using it for are people who are current students but haven't quite registered for the spring. And so, getting that kind of information and being able to target them through the segments has been really great for us, just because usually those kind of people slip through the cracks, and if somebody's already here, you want them to continue. So another thing that we've been doing is newsletters. So we have a weekly newsletter that goes out. So we've been using the marketing automation for that. And the biggest thing I think is the reports, just simply because I'm sure everybody knows you have to go into 3 or 4 different systems to try and get all the information you need for a report. So the insights, we're really looking forward to that and being able to use those. And the landing pages, we have already seen an increase in the amount of forms that we are having filled out, the inquiries, all of that stuff. So we haven't even really fully put this into place, and we're already seeing upticks in everything that we're doing. So, and I think a big thing is probably communication between, especially my team in admissions. We've been using, sometimes we've been using Excel sheets, and you don't want to use that. You want to see real-time things. And I think Element allows us to do that, to say, oh, she's already talked to him today, I don't need to follow up, things like that. So that's probably been, I would say, our biggest thing, is just the communication piece, whether it's internal or external.
Thanks, Brittany. I really appreciate that. And that goes back to, like, you can start using these components right now. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And building a landing page, building some of those landing pages is kind of, very, very quick and very fast. And a lot of our, most of our team will help out with that. So let me share my screen. So last thing that I wanted to kind of, talk about, let me see, am I sharing the right? Nope, I'm not sharing the right one. So the last thing that I wanted to bring up is, we understand how technology is being purchased on the other side, and kind of the nickel and diming, and hey, you need this component, you need that component, you need this additional services to implement this, but hey, we didn't kind of buy this beforehand. So we understand all of that, and we've tried to make it as simple as possible for an institution, and especially some of you guys that are the budget constraints, and trying to find budget for technology and implementing it. So in Element, it makes it basically, we have one simple price, right? So everything, unlimited users, unlimited records, data storage, communications, you get full access to all features and functionality for all your team. You can have as many people as you need in there. We manage the implementation, the SIS integration, and then of course the lifetime support through that live chat where you saw like within minutes. So taking all of those things that are usually separate, like the whole CRM component, the implementation is separate, the integrations, the analytics, and then we're kind of put it all into one. So depending on the size of the school, some of the smaller schools to the larger schools, Element is very, very cost effective to implement and to kind of bring on campus. And because of the one simple pricing for everything, would be able to you can serve both prospective students and current students as well under the kind of the same umbrella. So happy to kind of engage you with some of our university partnership teams as well. And for some of you, you might be already talking to us about it, but we would love to kind of continue that conversation. With that being said, I think we are kind of run out of time, so I wanted to kind of thank you again, and we're at time here, so Dr. Higman can kind of give me a little bit more context on
grace.
Do we have one more minute, or we
go ahead?
We kind of try to keep it at time, but hopefully this was do we have any questions that have come up that we can be able to answer?
I don't see any that hadn't come up before. And your team has done a great job of responding to the questions we have had in the chat. Yeah, they had done a great job on that. So,
all right.
Sorry.
Well, like I said, we're here, local. I'll be happy to visit your campuses if we need to, and let us know, how we can help.
And we'd like to say thank you. Your team was wonderful. They handled everything. The chat box, great information. The questions we did have got responded to. So I'm sure I'll get some more questions later on from the colleges, and whatever I receive, I will try to forward to you to respond to. But colleges and I would like to thank you and your team for being here today. Great information. We are going to have another session tomorrow, just for full disclosure, like everyone know. We have Watermark tomorrow. And so they're going to answer questions from the schools just like today. But I will say this has been a wonderful presentation, one of the best I've ever seen. Great representation from the colleges, and thank you, Watermark and team. I mean, Element, I said Watermark before. Thank you, Element451 and team. Your team is great.
Thank you. Thank you.
They've done nothing but smile the whole time they've been on. It's great. So it's like,
yeah, Heather is here in Raleigh as well, so she lives here. So she's the representative from the university partner. So if she needs to come to your campus and talk to you, face to face, she'll do that. But I really appreciate it. Thanks for inviting us. And like I said, we're available. You can reach us always. Our information was. We can share that as well later on. But yeah, thank you again.
Thank you. And if something comes up, we may even have to have another session with the colleges. So we'll find out later. Yeah.
Like I said, we're absolutely happy to do that. We didn't get into a lot of details around integrations or specific areas. So we would be happy to kind of do that. Yeah.
I have one question before we go though.
Sure.
We use for our different platforms, our different segments, continuing education, curriculum, basic skills. They have different platforms, Kali or curriculum, what is it called?
Modern campus.
Destiny 1 for CE. So you're able to integrate between
Yes.
all. That's great. Okay. I think that's one of the biggest challenges we've had as a system is there's different platforms for different silos of program,
Yeah, and our recommendation is, I think one of the questions that came back from Wake was, well, we do have the workforce and kind of the different populations. Should we have different instances? And our recommendation was no, just keep it all in the same place because it's better to do, to kind of, it's better for the student to have them all in one place so everybody can see all that and the student can go from one to the other, different populations, rather than having different
doorways, different
doorways. Yeah, exactly.
Things, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.
And artists, I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop recording now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. Would you mind sending this recording